The name's Bond. James Bond.
Many people know you as James Bond. I think the greatest Bond. I think you're the greatest Bond. Thank you.
I do definitely see it as very much a standalone kind of series, and that's why I'm not really I'm not too precious. I do enjoy them. I always come back and watch them, and I get something out of them. And sometimes when I don't watch, because they're not my top 20, not top five, all that sort of stuff, it's quite nice because I don't watch them as often. It's nice to come back and feel like you've watched these, sort of discovering a new Bond film. That's always really great when you go, oh, I completely forgot about that scene. And it feels kind of fresh, even though it can be quite annoying if you get a bit stuck in the criticism.
In terms of his legacy, where does he stack up for you? And has it been overall a big success, would you say?
You can't deny there's been success because he is the films have been successful. Mostly critically. I think a few of them had some dodgy reviews and things, but financially, box office, it's kept the Bond series relevant. Is that there's a huge part of the fan base who grew up with Daniel Craig, who will then go back and look at the rest of the series and start discovering them. And it just cannot be criticised for that. Is that you're still creating Bond films where I don't, maybe sometimes I don't feel the same connection to it like I do with the others. And again, like, if I'm being honest, sometimes that is down to nostalgia. Obviously, that's also down to personal choice and my what films that I like. But there's no denying that what he's done over the past whatever year, 20 years or whatever it's been, that he's actually kept Bond in the headlines, and it is in each film has made money and has kept people talking about it. And again, it's kept that appetite, which is why we're all kind of drooling for anything to do with this any Bond 26, because it's like, right, well, because it is a clean slate, that's probably made it even more exciting because now we can do whatever we want. We can go back and have a completely fresh start. It doesn't have to reference anything that's gone before. And that, I say, that for me is really exciting. I think his films are good films. Like I say, not always of a huge, great quality and don't always speak to me, but always enjoyable. And I'll continue to watch them. I think, let's say, what more? I think he's done the Bond brand well. I think he's been a good ambassador in terms of, like I say, keeping people talking about it and keeping it relevant.
Keeping the British end up.
Exactly.
Steve, do you think he'll be remembered as more than just the Bond who died?
Yeah, I think his legacy will be Casino Royale. People will remember him as, shaking not stirred, doesn't look like I give a damn. All these sort of quips rather than the ending of No Time to Die. I think he's had some great moments over his tenure. He's had some of the quips as well and the one-liners. So I definitely think it won't be his death that is his legacy. I think his legacy will be, as I said, the Casino Royale. It'll be shutting up all of the critics and all of the James Blondes and all of these people that said that it's a bit like when Ben Affleck was cast as Batman. Batfleck and say no to Batfleck and whatnot, and it worked out totally fine. I just think Casino Royale, Daniel Craig as James Bond, and Casino Royale was that, but on a much more amplified scale. He absolutely shut up the critics, and I'm glad he didn't say much in his initial interviews because he obviously knew from reading the script and knew up there that he had a real trump card and a winner in his back pocket. So, when I think of Daniel Craig, I don't think of that last scene in No Time to Die. I do think about, chasing Land Rovers down the Alps in Austria. I do think about, Casino Royale. I do think about him jumping that hedge and jumping into the Aston Martin. I do think about the DB10 chase in Rome. These are the things that I think about during that, when I think about Daniel Craig's Bond, and not so much the death. So, I think the legacy will be all of that, and mainly what he did to the franchise with Casino Royale.
That is interesting because it's positive, but you don't think he thinks that, oh, I wish my other films lived up to that unbelievable high to start with? You don't think he has any regrets like that, or I don't know?
I mean, when you listen to him talk about interviews and whatnot, I think he regrets playing Bond altogether. I think he's trying to reinvent himself with and do different things. Like he's just released Queer,
Yeah.
that was in the BFI.
How many James Bond films has Daniel made?
Are you asking me that? But I have to write the answer. I'm going to get it wrong.
I got your answer.
Go on then. How's it? Let's have a look. 2 exactly.
I don't know the actual.
I don't know either. I'd have to count them. I don't know.
Well,
Not really. No. No. 1, 2, 3, 5. 5.
5.
Yeah.
If you were to pass the James Bond torch, who would you love to see play him?
I don't care. I mean, I'm not writing. I'm doodling.
He's Benoit Blanc, he's trying to sort of start a franchise with Knives Out.
Yeah.
So he's trying other things. He's sort of trying to, diversify himself as an actor. But I think these things have always worked really well when a character has sort of almost embraced their typecast. If they start to, it's a bit like Henry Cavill fighting against him being, he quintessentially for a whole generation, people think of him as Superman. He could play all sorts of other roles, Man from Uncle, Mission Impossible, all other things, but people always see him as Superman. And if you embrace that, I think you'll actually do quite well out of it. Whereas Daniel Craig seems to be fighting against the Bond legacy, which seems to be sort of the Bond curse, is what they all have tended to do. If you look at even autographs, when Daniel Craig walks out of Hamlet's in New York or whatnot, he's more likely to respond to fans and give autographs if you met him at an event like that rather than a Bond event.
Yeah.
If you go from my Instagram, I've got a whole string of events in London where Daniel Craig has just walked past me, absolutely won't acknowledge his fans who are fans of the Bond franchise. So I don't know. I think he does regret playing Bond. I mean, I'm sure his back pocket doesn't, but maybe he wants to be considered more of an actor than a Bond. It's sad. I would have liked for him to sort of embraced it. I think it would have almost been easier for him to go to other roles and try different things if he'd embraced it rather than just pushing back and leaving this real sour taste in the mouths of most of his fan base.
There's two different sides to him, and there's the difference between Craig the actor and Craig the person, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think that's sometimes been unfairly blurred the lines on him. He could be even worse, not embracing it whatsoever, but be an unbelievable Bond. You can have both those things.
I think overall, in cinema, he's left a lasting legacy as James Bond. It's not always been the most straightforward ride. There have been bumps along the way, both on screen and sort of off screen as well. But we have to understand that being James Bond is one of the most high profile and high pressured roles in cinema. I don't know. I think it's more than Batman, more than Superman. I think perhaps that's recently been worse for those two roles because there've been so many films, almost films at the same time that have existed, which has helped. I think
It's
also
so
the fact that
convenient.
you get a costume which often has a mask, so it covers you up, so you're almost as good as what you look like in that, which can help you as well. Whereas Bond, I don't know. I was even thinking. Sorry, I'm really going off tangent a little bit, but England football team, men's football team, have recently appointed a new manager, and that is such a unique role where every press conference you're asked about politics and things like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying as Bond you do, but Bond actor is under such scrutiny, and certain actors have dealt with it more than others in terms of being that champion, being that person, embracing, as Steve's talking about, embracing the fandom. And it isn't easy. And, Daniel Craig has been doing it for longer than anyone else. I think overall, if Spectre had just been a bit better, that would have been a good final film for him. He'd have done, like I said, he'd have done 4 films in a 9-year period, which is pretty decent going.
Yeah.
And then, we could have gone on to the next one. I just think perhaps that delay to No Time to Die, which wasn't, a lot of it was down to COVID. But then him dying and then this delay again, I think Kev was talking about this, has probably not helped, and it's just sort of lingering on. But I remember Stephen Carty saying that kind of this was before No Time to Die was released, that his legacy would hinge on whether No Time to Die was good or not. Which is kind of difficult one to address. I think, because Casino Royale, big hit, really good. Quantum of Solace, not quite as big, not quite as popular. Skyfall, huge, really popular. Spectre, not quite as big, not quite as popular. So for a fifth film, it was sort of all hinging, not all hinging, but you could argue that it hinged on, and that's a debate for itself as to whether No Time to Die was, you know, the success and everything. So I think, personally speaking, he isn't my favorite Bond, but I can't deny that there have been some great films. There have been some great moments for him as Bond. He's brought something new and exciting to the role. He's brought it to a new audience for loads of people, whether they're huge Bond fans or not so huge Bond fans. He's their favorite Bond. He will go down in history as being, a really good Bond actor.
Very fair, Matt. Fletcher, where does he rank in your 6 major Bond actors?
Yeah, Craig ranks number 2 for me.
Oh, that's good.
Connery, nobody's touching Connery. He's number 1 by default. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
yeah, I think what Craig has been successful at doing is um, reinventing the character, and he's done it in a way where he, as we discussed earlier, he was up against all odds, with the criticisms from the very beginning, which I kind of feel soured his overall approach to taking on the role. And when you look at his interviews for No Time to Die, you'd think that it was a completely different person. This guy was on cloud nine. He was laughing, he was giggling, he was just so happy, because he knew he was done,
Yeah.
you know. But he still delivered on every performance that he did. So the quality of the films, weren't always consistent, but and I don't necessarily always like certain performance choices that he made, particularly in No Time to Die and Spectre. But he never phoned it in. He always came prepared. Um, and I think he will be remembered and recognized as somebody who really helped usher Bond into the 21st century. Where you did have your Bournes, your Jack Bauers, your Ethan Hunts, really sort of dominating, because when you look at the Bond films of the past, they were doing what films like Mission Impossible are now doing.
Yeah.
And to sort of stand out in in that arena, in that space. Craig's been able to do that because the guy isn't, again, one of the other criticisms was that he wasn't tall enough or he wasn't handsome enough and, all that stuff. But he still managed to show audiences that he is James Bond. And when people, I mean, his silhouette now is easily recognizable as James Bond. So he's done a remarkable job in being an ambassador for the brand. By and large, he will be remembered fondly as a good Bond. I've been happy overall with his tenure.
Harry, you've said before that it's hard to properly assess someone's legacy until another actor has done some films after him.
Well, yeah, you see it happen now. Brosnan was popular until someone else came up. As in, it can be positive or negative. And I do think it helps to have, even our thoughts on No Time to Die will be helped once we know there's another film and once there are more films coming along. And when there's a new Bond actor, I will definitely look on Craig's tenure differently. I'm sure of it, of how it fits into the history of Bond. For me personally, he's not my favourite Bond, and there have been times when I've struggled with him off camera and on camera, and it took me three films to like him, I would say, and having talked about it, that idea of him ending on Skyfall or maybe even Spectre, would have been probably good and fitting. Problems started to come though after Skyfall because he was doing another. He seemed to get a little bit hooked on his own exit and making it a profound and dramatic resignation or death, if you know what I mean. And I think even I don't know if I get the sense that as an actor, I don't know if he's like insecure or still because of Bond, he feels he's really quite keen to prove himself and his acting chops. Like I from what I see, I don't think his performances in other films are as good as they used to be. He's kind of gone a bit AWOL for me as an actor. Not AWOL, gone sort of wild, and lost a little bit of control in this.
I'm not going to lose control.
Control, yeah, yeah.
If you feel yourself losing control,
Tanner, relax.
I'm not going to lose.
Control.
Just did a bit of a quest to get recognition, and I think it's Bond that's done that to him because he was a confident, strong actor when he took the role, and by the time Skyfall, I don't think it really tainted his career too much. But I think he held on a bit too long and tried to get a really amazing farewell, and now he's trying to counteract that by doing roles that are very different. I don't rate his like Benoit Blanc is a really unusual performance, not very convincing for me, and I just think he's lost it quite a little bit as far as I'm concerned as an actor during his phase as Bond. But that's my personal view. What's factual is that he injected absolutely loads of excitement, a fresh image for Bond, which for the first time ever, he's proven that you don't have to look a certain way to be Bond, which is massive, that's progress really in some ways. And he, overcame loads of criticism from mass media, and proved so many people wrong and paved the way for others to take on Bond. And like it's been mentioned, the success of his films, the money it's brought in, and the fact that it's given it legs to carry on is really important. I mean, for all my personal tastes, maybe not being Daniel Craig's biggest fan, far worse would have been someone who came and brought very little, and the films fizzled into nothing, and the franchise was lost. Daniel Craig has brought something new, something fresh, and over time, I'm sure I'll discover more and more that I like about what he did for the films and what he did for Bond. So even though I'm not his biggest fan, I know that he's been very, very important for the franchise. There are people who love him, and when I hear Kev talking about him as his number one, I mean that I'd really love to hear that, and to hear other people love him, and even Kev saying that he's like the top three Bond. I think I agree with that in terms of the main faces, and like Fletcher said, in terms of even his silhouette has become recognizable. That is really important. That is a really important thing in terms of he has established something new and something for the modern era. And whether I like it or not, or wherever I am on my journey with Craig, he has been really important for the franchise. Definitely, that can't be in any doubt.
We've got to end with Kevin because we want some proper positivity here. Not that you weren't really positive, Harry.
Yeah, I tried. Come on.
No, well, it's a long, it's 15 years of our formative years of our lives, really, growing up, and it's such a huge thing that's happened. And there's been times where you think, oh, he's quit. What, is he still staying? And then, oh, he's back. And it's been an emotional roller coaster, hasn't it? And that's just off screen. And then the films, goodness me, proper emotional roller coaster. But Kevin, yeah. Are you sad? Are you in a sort of period of mourning at the moment, do you think?
No, like Daniel Craig's my favorite. He's never made a bad movie. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Good night. Good night.
All of his films are great. I think I think what he's done, I can't really add too much more than what you guys have said. I think his impact on the franchise is phenomenal, positive, whether or not you like his tenure. I think we can all agree that he's done right by the Bond films. He's injected that shot in the arm that maybe they needed at the time. Yeah, and I just think it's been really good for me at least to see a Bond. I think what he did was kind of inject a little bit of a soul into the character. Because like we've seen Bond be a cold-blooded killer. We saw that in Doctor No, like in the river when he comes behind and knifes a guy.
Yeah.
Like this isn't a Craig thing. Like Connery was doing that day one. You know what I mean? So we've seen cold-blooded, and we've seen emotional. We've seen Roger Moore and Spy Who Loved Me just get really serious and be like, Anya, this is what we do. Like he's cutting the act. Like this is down to brass tacks. So we've seen Bond, we've seen flashes of this here and there. But I think with Craig, they did their best to inject that humanity, to see a man really struggle with the line of work he's in and it really take a toll on him and really see it, like maybe see a way out. And then that way out is taken away from him. And how does he deal with that? How does he progress throughout this tenure? And so I think they've tried to do something a little bit different, dive a little bit deeper. Your mileage may vary, but I think for me, overall, I just love what they tried to do with him, and I enjoy the character arc and just kind of seeing him beginning, middle, and end. And yeah, he's gonna be my favorite. Well, you never know. Like, Moore was my favorite as a kid, and then you got Daniel Craig kind of came in and took the crown, and who knows what the next guy will do. But for now, but that's what's exciting about the Bond franchise. We'll see what happens down the road, but I'm very thankful for his time in the role. I think he's done a great job.
Brilliant. And 5 films is a big legacy.
Yeah.
Only Connery and Moore have done more. So that really is, like you say, that top 3 of when you've done a 5th. I mean, I know Brosnan would have loved a 5th just to elevate him to that category. But these days now, you do worry, will an actor be around long enough to do 5? Because it's the rate they're making them, it's less and less likely, isn't it? So the fact that we don't want Bond doing, we wanted Dalton to do more. Ideally, Lazenby would have done more. We don't want choppy and changing. We want that run of actors. And we were very fortunate that Daniel did keep going in the end and gave us 5 films that there's so much to talk about in them. That's one of the things I love about them and doing this podcast. This is ridiculously long, this episode. I mean, they always are with us, aren't they? But there's so much more we haven't gone into in the films. But Eon, they usually get it right. In fact, they pretty much always get it right, don't they, in terms of casting for the right person at the right time. And let's just hope and pray that happens for the 7th James Bond and the 26th Bond film, because we've been given a great legacy of 25 films, and Daniel Craig is well and truly a massive part of that.
You're going to be asked about this every day the rest of your life. Who should be the next Bond, etc. Like today, as we sit here, there are all these rumors about Aaron Taylor Johnson, a great actor. Like, do you have you even heard that? Is that something like that you?
I don't really pay any attention.
Yes.
It's a lot of noise. I mean, I don't go on the internet, and I don't have a social media account or whatever it's called. So
except for TikTok. You're huge on TikTok.
Massive on TikTok. Yeah. Apart from TikTok. So I just, it's what it is.
Will it be fun to watch just as a...
Yeah, of course. I'll be front and center.
So when we're back here in 30 years, we're more likely to be talking about the return of Benoit. We're not going to see Harrison Ford style a return to Bond in 30 years. Never say never again, another guy said once.
Who knows? No, I don't think so, but, who knows? I mean, God knows what the future holds for us all.
Mathilde? Quoi? I'm going to tell you a story. About a man. His name was Bond. James Bond.